what if your darkest moment was actually the beginning of your most powerful chapter? 5 years ago, Ruth Gledhill was in hospital fighting for her life, overweight, sedentary, and wondering where it all went wrong. She had to learn to walk again and couldn't imagine standing on a podium. But here's what she couldn't see from that hospital bed: that in just a few years, she'd be representing Great Britain at the Ironman 70.3 World Championships. That she'd be breaking world records in her age group, that at 66, she'd transform her body to 87% muscle and discover a strength she never knew was possible. Sometimes our worst moments aren't endings, they're turning points. And sometimes the tools we need to transform are literally at our fingertips. This is Ruth's story of going from deathbed to podium, from invisible to unstoppable, from giving up to finding her power. I'm Anika, and this is Unshrinkable Midlife Moves. Hi Ruth, great to see you today.
Hi, Anika. Thank you very much for asking me to come on. It's really exciting.
When I came across you and I saw that you've just done an Ironman, it blew my mind. You are an inspiration, and I knew that I had to talk to you. So we're going to talk today about your experience racing at different levels at Ironman. You also do high rocks and other things that we can find out about. But before we get into that, do share a bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Ruth Gledhill, and I'm nearly 66. And when I was at school, I was a very good runner, and I used to win all the athletics cups and cross-country cups. But beyond school, in the wider community, I never won. I always came second or third. So I learnt the lesson very early on that I felt I couldn't be best, and I wanted to be best. There was some pressure on me a little bit to consider making sport a career. But not only was the fact that I couldn't win out there in the wider world, and I liked winning, but also my sister, who was only 18 months younger than me, whenever I won a school cup, she then won it off me the next year.
Oh, no.
Well, so many people out there were better than me. Anyway, the situation was resolved for me when I broke my leg in a very bad skiing accident. So after that, I had wanted to leave school at 16 and work with horses, because I've been involved with the racehorse community as a stable girl and riding out the horses. But there was quite a lot of pressure put on me to be more academic. So I went down that road and I had a very successful career in London and met my husband at work. We had a family. I did try ballroom dancing at one point and did quite well. This was after the original Come Dancing had disappeared from our screens, but before Strictly existed. People in the dance sport community wanted it to become an Olympic sport. And it did get a little way down that road. I got involved with it, so it was a little bit different really to what you're on Strictly, but not that different. And I did quite well as an amateur competitive dancer. But when I had a baby, it's very difficult to dance when you've got children. So then my priority then was my family and work. So I carried on working throughout bringing up a family. I stopped doing anything really, because my whole life when I wasn't sitting behind a computer was sitting behind the wheel of a car doing activities with a child or children. So I became very sedentary, and it just crept up on me really. I was so active and I loved sports, dancing and running, but I just fell in love instead with sitting on the sofa, on a chair and behind the wheel of a car. And so then just before the pandemic, my diet was terrible and I was very sedentary, so I put on a lot of weight. Then I became critically ill with severe acute gallstone pancreatitis. I almost died, and we just got to the hospital in time. In fact, they wouldn't send an ambulance because they said I just had colic. I got a Uber, and thank goodness the driver, who looked at me very dubiously because he thought I was drunk, I think. I could barely walk. I was staggering all over the place. I just got to hospital just in time, and I was in intensive care. I was in hospital for nearly a month.
When was this?
Just before the pandemic. I think it was 2020 or 2019. It's a little bit hard for me to remember. Then I had to go back into hospital after, because that critical illness does terrible things to your body. So my body had to recover once I'd passed the danger point and was out of hospital. I came out with a walking stick. I couldn't walk or anything. I had to learn to walk again. And then I had to go back in during the pandemic to have my gallbladder out to prevent a recurrence of this. I had lost a lot of weight then. There's nothing like a really serious critical illness when you can't eat in hospital for weeks to take those pounds off. But I wasn't losing weight in a good way. When I was hobbling down the road with my stick, going to get a coffee and a croissant, of course, still not having learnt my lesson, I bumped into some friends. It turned out they were in a running group and they ordered me to start running. and going to parkrun.
Even though
And
they saw how poorly you were.
they said I had to get better and I had to do that. And I couldn't really complain because they were both in their 70s. One of them did die recently of a heart attack, which was very sad, just before his 80th birthday. They'd both had health challenges. In fact, the one who's just recently died of a heart attack had himself almost died in hospital during COVID, because by now this was after the pandemic. And he'd also spent a month in hospital. So I couldn't complain. He was doing marathons and doing parkrun every week. By the time he died, he'd done nearly 800 parkruns and volunteered every week. So I agreed to start doing it. And I barely staggered round my first one and felt so ill afterwards that I got the bug. Then I saw that loads of people in parkrun were in a local running club, which is called Ranelagh Harriers, a famous local running club, a very old one, very well known. It's actually Christopher Brayshaw who founded the London Marathon, and his family had links with that club. I didn't know that at the time. And so I got involved with them and started running with them. Then I realised that running wasn't enough for me and I wanted to do cycling and swimming as well. I really by now had the fitness bug. But again, I wasn't winning races. In fact, quite often I was coming last. And again, like winning. So I wanted to do something where I thought I might have a chance of winning.
So how did you get into cycling and swimming? You just had a go, or had you done it historically?
So back in 1987, before I first came to London, I had started running a little bit when I moved to London for work. Some people at work who were actually connected with the London Marathon had started a new running club. It's now Serpentine Running and Triathlon Club. It was quite new then. I was persuaded to go along to the Serpentine. So I became a member and ran with them for a couple of years. And I did the London Marathon in 1987 when it was still very new, totally different race. I didn't do very well. I did 3 hours 48 and I was 27. I had been too busy working to train properly. So I hit a very bad wall and could barely finish it. So I was staggering down the mile, and it wasn't like the marathon today. Everyone was laughing at me. There weren't that many women doing it. And I had set off with all the elite runners because it was much smaller then. It was still a great atmosphere, great fun. Anyway, after that, I was persuaded by some friends to do a sprint triathlon, which is now the Thames Turbo Bank Holiday May triathlon. But then it was just the Twickenham and Teddington triathlon. I came second and second lady overall. And I thought, oh, wow, this is something I can do. Then I started dancing. So I abandoned sport then to dance.
Okay.
And so that was that. But I remembered having done this one sprint triathlon when I started running with Ranelagh Harriers. So I thought, why not have another go? So much has changed. Back then, everything was done on paper with whistles. Now, everything is completely data-led, and I love the wearables. But the biggest change is the introduction of age groups. And when I found out about the age groups existed and that I would only be competing against my peers and not against people 30 or 40 years younger than me, I thought, wow, here's something I might be able to win at, because I knew I could be good again. It was a real motivation for me, the possibility of coming first over that finish line, to have another go. I slowly tried to get back into it. I joined a little local cycling group, and then I rejoined Serpentine Running and Triathlon Club, and they started doing triathlon. I got a coach, James Riley from Run Unbound, who specialises in endurance. I decided to aim for Kona, which is the Ironman World Championship. I call my journey Couch to Kona. But
so just to explain for people who don't know, what is Ironman?
So when I started doing it, the Ironman, the main triathlons were Olympic distance triathlons and sprint triathlons. But in the time when I wasn't in the game, the Ironman has become quite dominant. An Ironman is a very long triathlon, basically. So you swim 2 miles, you cycle 100 miles, and you run a marathon at the end of it. I have never done a full Ironman because I'm coming from the couch, basically, and from a place of terrible unfitness. And because I'm older, I have to face reality and accept that if I'm not going to get injured, I have to take things slowly and build back up to a point where I can do that kind of distance and over that kind of time, because it's likely to take me about 15 or 16 hours to finish an Ironman. It took me 7.5 hours to finish the last 70.3 I did, which is basically a half Ironman. So I'm still doing Olympic distance, which is much shorter, and sprint distance, which is really short. I qualified for the British team age group. So I've been to the World Championship last year in Torremolinos and the European Championships in Vichy in France with the GB age group team. And that's so fantastic because you wear the kit and you do the Parade of Nations. I couldn't believe it was possible for someone my age, after my health issues and basically in this part of my life, to be representing my country at an elite sport. It's the opportunities out there are just so amazing, and it's really fantastic, and it's so good for you. So I had to conquer some things. I had a terrible fear of open water swimming.
Okay.
Even though I was quite a good swimmer, I went into almost paralysis when I was in the open water, terrified of drowning, terrified of putting my head under. And I found it very difficult to conquer that.
So what did you do to get over that? Was it just training?
Just kept going back in again, really. One of the main things I did to get over that was I thought the reason I'm frightened of it is because I don't feel strong enough. I'm worried that I might run out of puff in the middle of the ocean or the lake or wherever I am. I thought I've got to get stronger. So I started strength training and conditioning. I listened to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot. And I quickly realised that this was an area, a big deficit for me. My body composition was still in quite a bad place. If you're running, you aren't necessarily building up much muscle. You're doing lots of other good things, but you're not building up the kind of strength that you need to have the optimal body composition that will keep you going in endurance efforts, both in water and on land, whether it's swimming or on the bike or running. And also I read quite a lot about aging and how to have the best possible health for as long as possible. Inevitably, we all get there in the end, but you can do quite a lot to enhance chances of having an optimal later life by looking after your health in the best possible way. And so I found out so much that I was doing wrong in terms of diet, and I've got to wear all these wearables now. I've worked very hard to improve my body composition. So even though I'd lost some weight, it was still mainly fat and very little muscle. And the last time I checked on my scales, I was 87% muscle now and just 13% fat, which is really an incredible change for me. So I try and do weights in the gym at least 2 or 3 times a week on top of the other training. So anyway, through doing those, I came across high rocks.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God, I love high rocks. It's so
Addictive,
fun.
isn't it?
It's really addictive. So I've done my first high rocks. Now,
When did you do your first high rocks?
Birmingham.
And when was that? Recently?
It was this year. So I started doing high rocks because when I did my first 70.3 in Bolton, which was quite an experience, it was very hilly, very cold. The swim was so cold. And I knew it was going to be cold. So I had taken along a hot porridge and coffee to have in transition, T1. Now, if you're a serious triathlete, you're meant to rush through transition so that you spend as little time as possible changing from swim clothes into bike clothes and so on. But I spent 15 minutes in T1 having a really nice hot breakfast so that I could recover enough to survive the bike and the run. As a result of that, I did win that age group. So that's how I qualified for the World Championships, which I've just done in Spain, in Marbella. So in the World Championships.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I can't let that go without congratulations. That's amazing.
It was an amazing experience and I felt it was an achievement doing that. There were 62 people in my age group, 65 to 69 starting. About a third of them didn't finish.
Oh,
Of those who did finish, I came about halfway down. So I was about 24th. It was a tough swim with rolling and very high waves. Even though the beacons out there are huge to help with seeing where you're going, sighting, you still couldn't see some of the time because the waves were so big. And the bike ride. Everyone in the WhatsApp group I was in, people were coming back off the bike ride and posting, WTF. You went up to the top of this dead volcano. 2/3 of it was uphill. It was non-stop climbing. My Strava afterwards said it was the biggest climb I'd ever done.
I
It
bet.
was about 1,800-meter climb. And then more or less down a cliff face, coming back down again. So really fast as well. So all the things that one doesn't like on a bike. The non-stop climbing and then precipitous descents. I just like going out for nice coffees and teas on the bike and having a cake halfway round.
You've earned.
So that was my second 70.3 Ironman. I love Ironman. I love the brand because they have lots of loose stops. I still have some GI issues as resulting from not having a gallbladder. I have to be really careful what I eat. It's very important for me that I can access a loo at almost any time during a race. And they also have fantastic nutrition as well, which is really great. So you have to take such good care of yourself during a long race if you're going to get to the end in a good time. I started doing high rocks to train for that World Championship. I didn't do a solo one. I did one with a doubles partner. because I thought I had to go at wall balls and I just couldn't.
They're evil, aren't they?
And as for the sled push and pull, oh my God. Anyway, I found a partner who was the same age as me to do it. We did the Open in Birmingham. And to our amazement, we won our age group. Over 65s, women don't have to do the professional weights to qualify for the Worlds. You can qualify using the open weights. We have now qualified for Stockholm.
Congratulations.
Which is slightly unbelievable.
For your first race.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're doing London as well. I love high rocks. And it's great because of the strength aspect and because it's endless transitions, something like, 16 transitions?
Yeah.
Admittedly, you don't have to change in the transitions, but you're still progressing. One of the worst things is coming off the bike, going into the run, because your legs are just not ready to run, really, after you've done a really serious bike ride. And high rocks is very like that in terms of you do these really tough strength exercises.
And then you run or try to, or walk and get up to running.
Well, so it's got quite a lot in common. The great thing about high rocks is it has the age group bandings. So for people like me, it's fantastic to be able to come into a sport so late in life and to win.
And especially when you start the race, for people who don't know, everybody starts together. And when I've done my races, I look around and there's just lots of really young people. If I can count the number of people over 40 that I can visibly see are over 40, it's usually maybe on one hand. So having the age groups makes such a difference.
It really does. And I think it's much more even representation. And
Oh, really?
There's a lot of older people doing it. And if you do decide to do triathlon, I think you'd really enjoy it. It's a great community. I don't know quite why older people aren't doing high rocks. Although we won and qualified for the Worlds, we were 3 minutes off breaking the world record in our age group. But I think a lot of older people just don't know about it. 'Cause when people find out about it and they realise that this is a triathlon type sport, the atmosphere is fantastic.
It's a party.
It's much fun and there's no open water to go and drown in. I think it might take off among older people.
You do see a few people doing it. The oldest man was late 70s, and there is a lady called Badass Gran who is 70. So I think that is amazing. And lots of people are coming through. Hopefully, as you said, as awareness grows, it will increase.
I just think it's so good for you because in terms of my body, when I started doing all this, really protested and said, I don't want to do this. I could feel my body saying, I just want to sit on the sofa. Why don't you just watch the television like you used to? Okay, it'll kill you, but who cares about that?
How did you manage that as you came out of the more sedentary lifestyle into training for a triathlon? Because that, as you say, is a very extreme transition. It's not like you were doing a 5K or walking.
I did start with the park runs and then started with Ranelagh. But then I did injure myself a couple of times really badly. I pulled my adductors and abductors because of the particular pressures of biking and then running after biking, what they call brick sessions, when you put one on right on top of the other. So then I got a coach after that, James, who I mentioned before, and I follow his schedule fairly strictly, even his rest days. And I don't always want to take the rest days, but they're really essential, especially when you're older, to allow your body to recover. And I have had to change my diet quite drastically. I've mainly increased my protein. And actually, it's very difficult. I don't really want to lose weight because I want to be big and strong. It's a complete change in mindset because, like most women of my generation, you're indoctrinated by society into wanting to be this stick thing, twiggy ideal. And you spend your whole life failing to diet and failing to get like that. So when you've got quite big bones like I have, it's impossible to ever look like that. And you just constantly trying, constantly failing. It's a hopeless thing, really. And I think that kind of failing to understand the wrongness of that was one of the things that led me down that road of really bad diet and sedentary lifestyle and giving up, really. I did quite being well padded and everything, but it did feel as though I'd given up. And so I just read a lot and listened to a lot of podcasts and learnt where my diet was so bad and how to change it for the better. I do try and avoid processed foods, but I do use protein powders because otherwise I find it very difficult just to get the quantities of protein I need. A couple of years ago, I was recruited by some researchers at UCL in London, University College. They were part of a big national study involving many thousands of people into ageing. It's based at one of the universities in the Midlands or up in the north somewhere. They were exploring how older people would or would not adapt to some of these new technologies such as the Oura Ring. I was given a free Oura Ring and asked to use it properly. And so I started using it, and I was so shocked by what it told me. My sleep was all over the place. My diet was all over the place. My resilience was nowhere.
Give you in terms of information around your diet? I'm surprised by that. Or the calories?
No, it's diet. You can input what you're eating and it will give you a certain amount of information. But actually, I now use a Withings.
What's that?
Withings. So it's a scale, and that monitors your body composition. So Aura really, in my view, is good for sleep. But sleep is an absolute crucial component of good health. So I'll just tell you about the Aura Ring first. So I use 3 things, really. So I use 4 things. I use the Aura Ring, and that is everybody has a different biological preference for their sleep cycle. Either you're an early morning person or a late morning person, or you're somewhere in the middle. I've found out, which I'd never known before, from wearing an Aura Ring over so many weeks, my natural body clock was to get up very early and go to bed early. All my life, I've been fighting that desire to do that and trying to stay up late. And as a result, always failing to get enough sleep. And once I understood the circadian rhythm, the individual circadian rhythm, and accepted it, it's completely changed my life. I used to wonder, did I have narcolepsy? Because I was always so tired in the day. I don't know, I never feel tired in the day because my sleep rhythm is properly attuned. My lifestyle is properly attuned to my personal sleep patterns. And what the Oura Ring does, it tells you when is your ideal time to go to sleep. It measures your vitals through various monitors inside a ring. I think it's a fantastic piece of technology. So then I use also the Withings scales, which measures body composition, how much muscle you have and how much fat you have. Then I use an app called My Net Diary for maintaining weight. I don't really want to lose weight. I do want to have the maximum possible muscle and the least possible fat in my body composition. It massively changed. And you instantly see, look, I do love chocolate and croissants, and if I indulge in them, I instantly see the result. You can see it instantly in the data. So I find this in data so incredibly helpful because it's not just a feeling anymore. And there's no need to feel guilty or whatever. You can just not do it in order to reverse it. So you can have a day in a week when you indulge, and then you can think, oh, well, now I'll just eat lean chicken for a day, and then instantly you're back to where you were before you've had that bar of chocolate. I think we're so lucky to be alive in this age when you've got all these resources available. So the other thing I use, which is probably the most important thing actually, is I use an Apple Watch. And I love that because most people use a Garmin, but I like the Apple Watch because it's a broader lifestyle thing. So it is a mini phone as well as being a watch. And it connects up very well with all these other wearables. The younger generations, they always joke about older people because they think Androids are too complicated for people like me, which is probably true.
But it's amazing that you are using all this technology, and I think that is just incredible and needs to be shared for that reason. No, because we're of a generation, we remember life before technology. They think we're less likely to adopt it, and that's not the case.
No. I think, if anything, we more appreciate it because we know what it's like not to have it. Right? Yeah. I love the technology. I think it's amazing.
So, out of your devices, which ones would you say you couldn't live without?
Oh, my Apple Watch. And if you count the phone, then of course that's 5. Of course, the phone is the one I really couldn't live without. The sports devices, the Apple Watch probably is the one I couldn't live without because I like to wear aftershocks and running. They're the headphones and they're bone conductors. So you can wear them quite safely on the bike as well because you can still hear traffic and things like that. But you can listen to music while you're cycling.
I'm not used to music or headsets for that reason because I'm really wary of not being able to hear things.
Yes. So if you use these bone conductors, they don't block your hearing. It's really clever. The aftershocks do ones that are waterproof. So I use them for swimming as well. And they're great. But with most of them, they have to be able to connect to a phone or a watch. I like the watch and the phone so I can listen to my music while I'm working out.
When we were talking before we started recording, you touched on the fact of women feeling perhaps invisible. How has it been for you competing and training in a younger person's environment, doing what you've done?
When I was starting back out on this journey and trying to find people to train with, I did find it quite hard. And there's one club in particular I did join, which I was in for about 1.5 years, which was a fantastic club and a wonderful social environment and lovely people, but they were all really young, and I just couldn't keep up. I did find that really hard. I felt embarrassed. And they were quite nice and tried not to show it, but I was very conscious of the fact that for them it must have felt like cycling with their mum on the road. Sometimes drivers, especially male drivers, hate seeing older women on bikes.
Really?
Yeah. I have encountered some, maybe it's not just because I'm an older woman. I think some people just hate cyclists. So I have encountered some quite aggressive drivers as well. And I don't want to put you off trying cycling, but I am quite careful where I cycle on the open road, having had a couple of quite nasty incidents. A couple of times cars have come right at me, trying to give me a real fright, if not actually hit me, and shouting at me as well out of the window and stuff like that. I know I wasn't imagining it because of the way they were shouting, and when I wasn't doing anything wrong at all. So I got once visible then in the wrong way. When I was younger, I did, like all women do, get lots of unwanted attention. And so that has stopped. Now, I'm very glad that has all stopped. So that's invisible in a good way. But then sometimes you want to be noticed in other ways. And that can be quite hard to make yourself noticed without then maybe putting on the appearance of behaving in a way that can then come across as aggressive or pushy. So it can be quite hard to negotiate these territories. One of the reasons I really love sport now as an older woman, and I never thought I would love sport as an older woman. I just thought it wasn't a place for older women. But one of the reasons I really love it is because it's all measured by time and it's first over the line, and no one can argue with that. However old you are, you can't be invisible. You can't be written off and ignored. If you're first across the line, you have the right to go and get that medal and stand on that podium. And it's absolutely wonderful. And to anybody listening who thinks I would never be good enough to get on the podium, you would, because I can tell you there are not that many women doing it. So yes, in the World Championships and in the age group qualifiers in triathlon, there are a lot of older women doing it. But in the smaller competitions, which are just for fun, you might sometimes be one of only one or two in your age group. Yeah. So you will nearly always podium.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more likelihood there is if you are podiuming. And the other reason I love it is I love using podium as a verb.
Yes.
Eagle. In park running, you've got the age groups as well. So you can be best in your age group. Even if you're running with hundreds in the field, you can be best in your age group simply because there tend to be fewer people in the older age group. So you don't have to be very good to win. You just have to turn up.
To be in the race.
When you're in the age group triathlon, if you're trying to qualify for the British team, those are quite competitive. There are a lot of people across all age groups, even the older ones. You can't just get round because you have to qualify for the World or European Championships. You have to finish within a certain percentage of the winner in your age group. If you're outside that limit, you won't qualify, even if there's only two of you, even if you came second. So you do have to put the effort in. But actually, I find it perfectly within my physical capabilities to make those time cut-offs. 5 years ago, I was dying in a hospital, overweight and basically a sedentary person. So I would say to people out there, unless you're unlucky and have got some chronic health condition that stops you or your knees or hips are gone, do give it a go.
Yes.
It's amazing what you can do.
It's just about trying and taking those first steps. Before we start wrapping up, what would you say has been a formative post-40 experience for you as a midlife woman who is also doing sport?
I would say that the biggest thing for me is I restored my confidence. I found my midlife career quite challenging. I found it very stressful. And in the end, I took redundancy from my high-powered job because it was just too much for me. I felt that I made mistakes as a parent and had a couple of failed marriages behind me. I just felt as though I had taken lots of wrong turns in my life. And then I ended up in hospital almost dying. I thought, God, what's gone wrong with my life? And what doing the sport has done for me, it's completely given my confidence back. I know I can never get those years back, but those mistakes were what got me to where I am today, which is a very good place. And I think our son would say that I was a good parent. I don't feel that failure now. I know I made mistakes, but I no longer feel hopeless. The hope really has given me back hope and confidence. One of the big fears for women is going out on your own after dark and everything like that. I'm obviously very careful, like we all are, running on my own out in the dark, and especially of what I wear. I don't want to get into trouble in any way. I have been jumped at by men on a lone stretch of road. I have had men jump at, and I thought this would all stop. Even if they do, I can run away because I'm faster than them. I know you can't always do that. I know it's not always that simple, but it has given me confidence and I feel strong. I feel like I'm a strong woman. I'm no longer so frightened by things out there. I know they're there and accept they're there and that these scary things happen and there are risks and dangers. But somehow the sport has given me the confidence to still go out there and do it, to face those fears of open water, climbing those dead volcanoes on the bike, fighting through the exhaustion on the run. It's really does so much for my confidence. I do feel like a different person.
That's something I can so relate to. This is why we're here. High Rocks has given me so much. I never imagined. I'm doing things now I would never have considered 18 months ago.
Amazing. The community in High Rocks is just incredible.
It's above and beyond. And I'm so grateful. I think grateful is the main word for me. Grateful that I found it. I just wonder what would my life have looked like if I hadn't. I was looking and I just couldn't find that thing. I was considering triathlon, but it just didn't really quite get to me because of the swimming. But now, funnily enough, now that I've done High Rocks, I'm like, maybe I could. It's that whole possibility now, which is exciting. So, final question. How would you describe what movement means to you?
It means power. Movement means power to me. The reason I have the confidence not to give up is because I feel I have the power. And the power comes from the movement. It comes from the support. It comes from the friendship. It comes from the good diet. It comes from taking care of one's body. It comes from all the benefits of having a healthy body, like being able to think and sleep properly. It's just so empowering. I love, as an older woman, you just don't think you're going to get into your 60s and suddenly start feeling powerful. I promise you, if I can do it, anybody can. You can really do it. And it's not that difficult to get there. Just got to make a few changes. And we have the technology to tell us what those changes are and how to make them. And we have podcasts like yours, and there's so many resources out there now. It's not difficult to listen to them, read them, pay attention to them, and make relatively small and easy changes. And then just put one step in front of the other. A friend of mine used to say, just do the irreducible minimum. If you think you can't do it, if you're struggling to get out of bed in the morning or struggling to do that one thing, just do the tiniest little thing. So put that first shoe on, then that second shoe on, and then just go out the door.
Thank you so much, Ruth. This has been amazing. Really appreciate it. So where can we find out more about you?
I have a little blog called Try and Error, which is, I've got a little website called ruthgledhill.org. And I haven't updated it as often as I should. But after my 70.3 Worlds and doing High Rocks, my confidence is coming back. I put up a new post the other day and I'm going to start updating it again. And I like to dabble a little bit in photography as well. So I'll be doing more of that. And I'm on Instagram.
Cheers.
Ruthie_Gledhill. That's probably the best place actually at the moment. And of course, Strava. Follow me on Strava. I think it's Ruth Gledhill on Strava.
Okay.
I think it's, anyway, I'll come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ruth.
And thank you for asking me. It's been great talking to you.
Movement means power. When Ruth said those words, you could hear the truth of them. Not the power she thought she needed in her 20s, not the power she lost in that hospital bed, close to death, but a different kind of power entirely. One she found in her 60s. The power to show up, to try, to fail and try again, to let an Apple Watch tell her the truth about her sleep, to let an Oura ring reveal what her body actually needed, to trust the data. Because here's what Ruth's story teaches us. In your worst moments, you can't see what's possible. You can't imagine that 5 years after almost dying, you'll be climbing volcanoes on a bike. You can't picture yourself strong, confident, crossing a world championship finishing line. Just because you can't imagine it doesn't mean it's not waiting for you. Let's sit with that. Let's sit with what Ruth taught us today. She showed us that age group categories changed everything, that you don't have to compete against 25-year-olds to matter. You just have to show up in your category, and suddenly the podium is within reach. She revealed that technology isn't just for the young. It's actually a gift for those of us who remember life without it. An Apple Watch that keeps you accountable. An Oura ring that finally explains why you're always tired. Body composition scales that show you the truth. Chocolate shows up constantly, but so does progress. She reminded us that strong beats skinny, that spending a lifetime chasing thinness is exhausting, but chasing strength, that gives you your life back. 87% muscle at 66 isn't about vanity, it's about power. She proved that the irreducible minimum works. When you can't face the whole thing, just put on one shoe, then the other, then walk out the door. That's it. That's how you go from sedentary to the World Championships. And perhaps most importantly, she showed us that movement and sport don't care about your past. Not your failed marriages, not your career stress, not your mistakes as a parent, not even your near-death experience. Finish line only cares that you crossed it. First place only cares that you got there. Time doesn't lie. Data doesn't judge. The podium is the ultimate equalizer. Now, here's the thing, and this is important. You don't have to aim for the podium. Ruth's story isn't about demanding you become a world champion. But what if you aimed for something? What if your podium isn't simply finishing your first park run? What if it's walking around the block without getting winded? What if it's finally understanding why you're exhausted all the time and doing something about it? The podium is just a metaphor for the finish line you set for yourself, the one that matters to you, the one that gives you back your power, your confidence, your hope. Ruth started with one shoe and then the other, then one foot in front of the next, with a little tech in her pocket and a willingness to trust the journey. And if she can find her power at 66, after everything she's been through, what's possible for you? If Ruth's story moved you, I have 3 small asks. First, share this episode. Send it to that friend who thinks it's too late. Text it to your sister who's been talking about starting. Post it in one of your groups. Someone in your life needs to hear Ruth's voice today. Second, if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe so you never miss these conversations. We're building a community of midlife women who refuse to be invisible, and I want you in it. And third, leave a review. What resonated? Which part made you think maybe I can do this too? Your words help other women find us, and honestly, they fuel me to keep bringing you these stories. You can follow Ruth on Instagram at Ruthie Gledhill. Check out her blog, Try and Error, at ruthgledhill.org, and connect with her on Strava, because watching her journey continue is its own inspiration. And if you're ready to start your own journey, remember, just put on that first shoe. The data will guide you, and the podium, it's waiting. I'm Anika, and this is Unshrinkable Midlife Moves.